Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today we're plunging into a truly fascinating, somewhat provocative, and definitely insightful set of sources that you've brought to our attention.
That's right.
They meticulously unpack what they call the grand lie in modern society, particularly as it relates to tradition, identity, and, well, the very nature of power. We've received some exceptionally rich material today from a source titled Democracy for Nepal, specifically focusing on their thought-provoking entries like Chicken Wing Brahmins of Kali Yuga and the Three Faces of Kali.
Those titles alone really grab you, don't they?
They certainly do. And these sources offer a razor-sharp critique of certain societal structures and mindsets, using, like you said, vivid, even satirical language. Our mission today is to thoroughly explore their core arguments, uncover the surprising facts they present, and really delve into the deeply thought-provoking insights they offer, helping you distill the most important nuggets of knowledge.
Indeed. What you're about to hear is a perspective that powerfully challenges widely held assumptions about identity, tradition, and privilege. We'll be looking closely at how these sources define authenticity versus illusion, especially within the context of what they refer to as Kali Yuga, a concept we'll fully explore.
Right, Kali Yuga. We should definitely unpack that.
Absolutely. And then we'll broaden our lens significantly to examine overarching societal power dynamics in India as the sources present them. What's particularly fascinating here is how the authors wield vivid, at times quite humorous and cutting, satire to drive home their points. They craft this narrative that aims not just to inform, but I think to be truly memorable and impactful for you.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Get ready to have your understanding of status, sincerity, and maybe even the nature of societal truth deeply challenged. This dive promises to be a really engaging journey through some very pointed social commentary that certainly doesn't shy away from controversy. So let's kick things off with that phrase that immediately grabs your attention from this material. Chicken Wing Brahmins of Kali Yuga.
It's quite the image, isn't it? It conjures up this almost absurd, certainly incongruous picture right away.
It really does.
But as the sources make clear, this isn't just a catchy or provocative title. It's a direct, pointed challenge to a perceived modern hypocrisy, a bold statement designed to make you pause and fundamentally reconsider what a traditional title or an inherited identity truly signifies, especially when, ancient, sacred traditions collide with modern lifestyles and practices. The material lays out what it sees as a profound disconnect.
Precisely. The core of this critique, as presented in these sources, it harks back to the foundational scriptures known as the Vedas.
Okay, the Vedas.
Right. These ancient texts originally defined the role and conduct of a Brahmin. The guidelines, as detailed by our sources, are remarkably clear, specific, and surprisingly simple. They leave very little room for ambiguity in their interpretation. They unequivocally state that a Brahmin must live a life of strict purity and discipline, which includes very specific dietary and lifestyle prohibitions.
And what are those exactly? Well, the big three are: you must not eat meat, you must not drink alcohol, and you must not smoke or consume intoxicants of any kind.
Okay, so no meat, no alcohol, no intoxicants. Very clear.
Very clear. These are not mere suggestions. These are presented as the absolute, non-negotiable core tenets of Brahminical conduct. And the sources strongly emphasize that, according to the Vedas, a true Brahmin isn't simply someone who has memorized rituals or can chant mantras proficiently.
It's not just about the performance, then.
Not at all. It's not about being able to recite ancient verses or perform complex ceremonies from memory alone. A true Brahmin, the material argues, is defined by living these very principles, by embodying that profound purity and rigorous discipline in every aspect of their daily existence.
Ah, so it's the lifestyle.
Exactly. This, it asserts, is the authentic Vedic ideal, the original blueprint, which the sources claim has been fundamentally distorted and frankly abandoned over time. It is therefore about a committed way of life, a spiritual and ethical practice, not merely an inherited label or an accidental status.
So that's the ancient blueprint, the ideal as meticulously laid out in the Vedas. But then the sources sharply confront us with what they describe as the modern reality, especially prevalent in what they term Kali Yuga. For those less familiar, maybe you can explain, how do these sources describe Kali Yuga, and why is its concept so central to their critique?
That's a great question, and it's absolutely key to understanding the context here. In Hindu cosmology, Kali Yuga is traditionally described as the current epoch, the age we're living in now, and it's often characterized as an age of profound conflict, strife, discord, and crucially, a significant decline in moral and spiritual values.
Okay, an age decline.
Right. The sources utilize this concept to frame the present societal condition. In this current age, according to their observations, we see a starkly different picture from that Vedic ideal we just discussed. Many individuals who proudly call themselves Brahmins, who may wear the sacred thread, the janu, a visible symbol of Brahminical identity,
Right, the threat.
and who might even perform priestly duties, are openly indulging in the very practices the Vedas explicitly prohibit.
Like the meat and alcohol.
Exactly. They consume meat, they drink alcohol, and they even smoke tobacco and use other intoxicants. The sources are framing this as a symptom of the moral degradation characteristic of Kali Yuga.
And the sources don't mince words about this perceived disconnect, do they? I mean, reading it, they call this situation not Brahminhood. This is hypocrisy.
They really don't hold back.
It's an incredibly bold, unvarnished claim, directly contrasting the traditional disciplined definition of a Brahmin with what is widely observed in modern conduct.
Mm-hmm.
The argument presented is that this isn't just a slight deviation or a minor relaxation of rules. It's presented as a complete inversion of the original meaning, effectively turning a sacred designation, which once required profound spiritual and ethical commitment, into nothing more than a hollow social title without the accompanying responsibilities.
Yes, exactly. They assert that it has become a performative identity where the outward appearance is maintained, but the true substance is entirely lacking. This indeed brings us directly to what the sources emphatically call the grand lie.
The grand lie.
And they are very clear, painstakingly articulating that their critique is not a campaign against Brahmins as a community, against people born into a particular lineage, or against individuals simply by virtue of their birth.
That's an important distinction they make.
It is. Their entire focus is a campaign against the grand lie itself. The authors want to make that distinction absolutely clear. They emphasize that their critique is aimed at an insidious idea, a pervasive falsehood, rather than at a group of individuals or an entire demographic. It's an ideological battle, not a communal one in their view.
So what specifically is this grand lie that they are so determined to dismantle?
It is the deeply ingrained and widely accepted belief that Brahminhood is exclusively or primarily determined by birth.
Ah, okay, so just being born into the family makes you one.
That's the idea they're attacking. The notion that anyone born into a Brahmin family is automatically considered a Brahmin, regardless of how they actually live their life, regardless of their adherence or lack thereof to the very principles that originally defined and gave meaning to the role. This, they argue, is the fundamental deception that has eroded the true meaning of Brahminhood and needs to be urgently exposed and dismantled.
So the lie is that identity and spiritual status are inherited as a birthright.
Exactly, rather than diligently cultivated through rigorous discipline, profound self-control, and ethical conduct.
Here's where it gets really interesting and, frankly, quite incisive. The sources explicitly state that true Brahminhood is emphatically not inherited. It is earned.
Earned.
It is, they assert, determined by conduct, not by birth.
Conduct, not birth. That's the mantra.
To truly drive this point home, making it incredibly relatable and undeniably clear for any listener, they employ these striking, almost folksy analogies. Imagine this one. This is like a thief calling himself a saint simply because he was born near a temple.
Yeah. Right. The absurdity is immediate, isn't it?
Totally. Or, even more vividly, they articulate, being born in a kitchen doesn't make you a chef. Being born in a hospital doesn't make you a doctor. And being born in a Brahmin family doesn't make you a Brahmin.
Those analogies really hammer home the idea, don't they?
They do, that a mere label or an inherited status without the corresponding action, skill, or adherence to principles is utterly meaningless.
It's about genuine practice and dedicated living, not just an inherited title or a surname.
This, in essence, is the blueprint for a meritocracy of virtue, which is kind of a surprisingly democratic message rooted in ancient texts.
It is, yeah. Quite unexpected in some ways.
So to truly illustrate this grand lie and all its perceived absurdity, the sources give us some incredibly vivid, almost theatrical examples of what they provocatively call fake Brahmanism.
Yeah, they don't just state the problem abstractly.
No, they bring it to life with these character archetypes that feel plucked straight from daily life, making their critique incredibly resonant. They describe what passes as Brahmanism today as not authentic, characterizing it as a hollow label, divorced from the discipline and sacrifice the Vedas demanded.
It's almost as if they suggest Brahminhood has become a costume party where the attire is worn, but the true character and underlying principles are utterly ignored.
Exactly. Let's meet some of these character archetypes straight from the sources, starting with Exhibit A, the the whiskey priest.
Okay, the whiskey priest.
Picture this, if you will. A sacred thread. The Janu, that key symbol of Brahminical identity, dangling prominently, but perhaps somewhat carelessly, over a half-open polyester kurta.
Polyester, okay. Not exactly sacred cloth.
Not exactly. In one hand, he clutches a whiskey glass, perhaps filled with Royal Stag, a popular brand. In the other, a chicken leg, the very embodiment of a food strictly prohibited.
Wow, quite the visual.
Right. This individual, fresh from a meal, or maybe about to indulge, will then, according to the sources, proceed to scold you about respecting tradition.
While holding whiskey and chicken.
Exactly. All while taking sips of his whiskey and bites of his tandoori chicken. And to really nail the modern irony, his Instagram bio proudly reads, #Brahmin pride.
Oh, wow. That's quite the portrayal of self-contradiction, the outward symbol clashing violently with the actions.
Completely.
And the sources continue this sharp characterization with Exhibit B, the tobacco sage.
But tobacco sage, tell us about him.
This is your Pandit Ji, the priest, who, according to the sources, smokes like a chimney before or even during conducting your house puja, a sacred ritual.
During the puja, really?
That's what they describe. And they pose these provocative questions designed to highlight the sheer incongruity. How does one chant the Gayatri mantra, a highly revered chant for spiritual purification, with breath reeking of tobacco?
Good question.
Or, how does one pour ghee, clarified butter, a symbol of purity, into the sacred fire during a homa ceremony, rituals for offerings and purification, with fingers greasy from eating chicken?
The imagery is designed to be deeply jarring, isn't it?
Yeah.
Emphasizing the spiritual pollution they perceive.
Absolutely. This person, the sources describe, preaches purity of mind, but conspicuously carries a permanent pan-stained smile. Pan often contains tobacco and a gutka pouch, another form of chewing tobacco, precisely where their prayer beads should be.
Wow.
They even imagine him declaring, with a certain casual irreverence, "I can't call on Lord Vishnu without a Marlboro Red."
That's just, wow. It's a powerful critique of internalized hypocrisy where the external markers are there, but the internal discipline is completely absent.
Precisely.
And finally, for our third archetype, we have Exhibit C, the Buffet Brahmin.
Ah, yes, the Buffet Brahmin. A classic, according to the sources.
A familiar sight, they say, at many social gatherings. You find him at every wedding, always positioned right at the front of the buffet line. Loading his plate with generous, overflowing portions of mutton curry and fish fry. Quintessential meat dishes, strictly prohibited by Vedic guidelines.
Right. Absolutely forbidden.
His constant excuse, every single time he's caught indulging, is a casual, dismissive, "Oh, it's just for today."
Just for today.
Yet, as the sources rightly note, this, today, seems to be a perpetual state, occurring every single day at every conceivable opportunity. His only mantra, they conclude satirically, is all you can eat.
This character perfectly encapsulates that idea of convenience, self-indulgence, overriding spiritual discipline, doesn't it? Self-control abandoned for momentary gratification, all while keeping the label.
Exactly.
And to further illustrate this satirical yet profoundly pointed view, the sources include this brilliant section of breaking news from the land of fake Brahmins, presented as if it's from a fictional newspaper, the Kali Yuga Times.
Oh, this part was amazing. These headlines are designed to be humorous, yet incredibly sharp, right?
Absolutely. They highlight the profound absurdity and the depth of the hypocrisy the authors perceive. For instance, imagine this headline, delivered with mock seriousness. Sacred Thread sponsors chicken wing eating contest in Varanasi.
In Varanasi, one of the holiest cities.
Exactly. The fictional report describes contestants, supposedly Brahmins, chanting the Gayatri mantra between bites of chicken wings, with the grand prize being a lifetime supply of butter chicken.
The irony is just devastating in its humor, juxtaposing the sacred and the utterly profane. It makes the critique undeniable.
Then we have the news flash about a Brahmin whiskey festival draws record crowds in Delhi.
A Brahmin whiskey festival.
Marketed with a deliberate biting pun as pure spirits for pure souls.
Oh, that's sharp.
Intended to underscore the deep irony, the organizers even claim satirically to have cited a newly discovered Upanishad verse declaring, "He who sips Glenfiddich attains moksha," or at least karaoke confidence.
Wow. That's a direct mockery of twisting spiritual texts to justify self-indulgence, isn't it?
Precisely. It highlights the intellectual dishonesty they're criticizing.
And the satirical news continues. What about the priest needing a smoke break?
Right. Puja interrupted after priest asks for smoke break in Mumbai. A significant Satyanarayan Katha ceremony paused because the priest needs a cigarette. The priest, according to the report, explains, "I can't call on Lord Vishnu without a Marlboro Red," claiming the smoke would carry prayers faster.
Claiming smoke carries prayers faster. That highlights the alarming normalization of prohibited behaviors in sacred contexts. It strips away any pretense of piety.
It really does, and it gets even more absurd pushing the satire with the scientific breakthrough. DNA test reveals 90% of Brahmins actually butter chicken in Patna.
Wait, what? DNA of butter chicken?
Exactly. The fictional report claims researchers found self-proclaimed Brahmins were genetically 70% whiskey, 20% tobacco, and 10% butter chicken residue, with no human DNA detected.
Okay, that's hyperbolic, but incredibly powerful as satire.
Mm.
It's saying their lifestyle has so diverged from the ideal that their very essence has changed. A striking visual metaphor.
A profound loss of true identity.
And they didn't stop there. What about the Uber for pujas?
Ah, yes. New spiritual startup. Uber for Pujas, whiskey optional in Bengaluru. An app called Pujapal revolutionizing or perhaps cheapening tradition.
Priests in 15 minutes, with add-ons.
With custom add-ons like astrology plus absolute vodka or Havan plus hookah.
The merciless mockery of the commodification of spiritual services, blending sacred practices with prohibited pleasures like a secular menu.
Absolutely. And then there's the amusing, yet pointed headline. Brahmin WhatsApp group declares paneer to Satvik, votes for mutton in Chennai.
Declaring paneer a pure food to Satvik.
Yes, leaders of a prominent Brahmin WhatsApp group declare it boring and unfit for Brahmin pride. They pass a resolution stating, from now on, biryani shall be the sacred prasad.
Biryani as prasad.
Wow. And an elder is quoted saying, our ancestors didn't fast so we could suffer through tofu.
That directly satirizes abandoning traditional restrictions for personal preference, justified by a twisted sense of pride that undermines their identity. And for the ultimate indictment, they imagine. Breaking. Vedas file defamation suit against fake Brahmins in heaven.
Hey! That's brilliant. The four Vedas themselves suing humanity for character assassination?
Their joint statement is quoted, "We clearly wrote no meat, no alcohol, no intoxicants. Not our fault. People can't read between whiskey shots."
That's perhaps the most direct and certainly the most humorous way they convey the core message. The foundational texts are being brazenly betrayed, a divine declaration of indignation.
And finally, the fictional Kali Yuga Times editorial. You don't need a sacred thread, you need a rehab center.
Very blunt. It asserts birth doesn't make you holy. Quitting booze, biryani, and Benson and Hedges does.
It's a stark summary. True discipline, conduct, ethical living, not birth or symbols make one holy.
The consistent satire serves a crucial purpose, highlighting the absurdity and hypocrisy, making the critique entertaining and impactful. You laugh, but it makes a deeply serious point.
So after all those wonderfully vivid, incisive, and sometimes hilarious examples, the sources make it abundantly clear. This critique targets a lifestyle and a mindset, not a group or community based on birth.
Right. Behavior, not lineage.
And here's the unexpected twist, the truly inclusive part. The door to true Brahminhood, according to these sources, is still wide open for anyone.
Yes. That's a crucial part of their argument. It's not exclusive. It's available to all who choose the path.
This is what they call the open invitation. They declare that regardless of your birth, background, family name, standing the path to becoming what the Vedas define as a Brahmin is simple in its directives.
Though not easy in execution, they add.
Right. Requires a profound conscious shift. The 3 steps mirror the prohibitions. Stop eating meat, stop drinking alcohol, and stop smoking tobacco and consuming intoxicants.
It's a direct callback to foundational principles, a demand for genuine adherence over mere designation. And the sources are utterly unequivocal here. They state boldly, follow the Vedic discipline and you're in. Ignore it and you're out, no matter who your father was or how many gotras you claim.
A gotra being the lineage marker.
Exactly. This powerfully reinforces their central argument. Birth does not sanctify you, behavior does. Bloodlines don't make you holy, discipline does.
So it's about lived virtue transformation of conduct.
Yes. The entire campaign, they assert, is about ending the grand lie, confusing the label for the lifestyle. It's a passionate call for authenticity, for aligning actions with values.
And recognizing that true standing isn't bestowed by birth, but earned through effort, integrity, self-control.
It's an open invitation to transform oneself from within rather than just relying on external markers. Now, building significantly on this specific critique of Brahminhood,
Yeah.
the sources then boldly expand their analysis to a much broader examination of deeply entrenched power dynamics within Indian politics and society.
Right, they don't just stop there.
No, they widen their lens to ask a much larger, more foundational question. Who has the right to power in the system?
Okay.
This is where they introduce the powerful and somewhat ominous concept of the three faces of Kali. It transforms the specific critique into a sweeping, social, historical, even metaphorical commentary about perceived entrenched power structures.
And just to clarify, the Kali here refers to Kali Yuga, the age of decline, not the goddess Kali.
Exactly right. That's a crucial distinction. These faces represent manifestations of that destructive influence, the forces perpetuating inequality in their view.
So who are these three faces, identified as historically dominating the power structure, considering themselves the natural owners of the system?
According to the sources, history consistently reveals three specific communities that have consistently considered themselves the natural owners of the system. These are explicitly named as Brahmins, Marwaris, and Muslims.
Okay, Brahmins, Marwaris, and Muslims.
The sources present them not just as distinct, but as interconnected forces that have profoundly shaped the socio-political and economic landscape over centuries. Each, they claim, contributed to this grand lie of ownership over the system.
And regarding the Marwaris, you mentioned their trading networks. Could you briefly elaborate on their historical context for our listener?
Absolutely. The Marwaris are a historically prominent Indian business community, traditionally from the Marwar region of Rajasthan. They're renowned for extensive trading networks, financial acumen, and entrepreneurial spirit, establishing significant economic control.
So Marwari control refers to this economic dominance.
Precisely. Their influence through trade, finance, and industry. Now, the sources delve into the historical roots of this belief in inherent ownership. They state all three groups originated from dry desert regions.
Desert regions. How does that factor in?
The harsh, resource-scarce life, they argue, shaped a particular mindset, a belief that resources and power belong to them alone, a kind of survivalist mentality that became a sense of entitlement over control and wealth. This perspective, they claim, led them to consistently look down on local communities, viewing them as subordinate, pushing them into roles of servants or followers, asserting a natural hierarchy where they were rulers or masters.
Suggesting geography bred a sense of privilege and entitlement.
That's the argument presented. The historical analysis continues, asserting that for centuries, governance meant war and bloodshed. Might made right power violently seized, often by these groups or aligned forces. Furthermore, they claim religion itself was shaped in a way that society would never achieve equality.
That's a powerful accusation, manipulating religion to justify stratification.
That's the implication, that interpretations serve to reinforce power structures favoring these groups. Even the learned, scholars who might challenge things, were confined to seeking alms, not wielding real power. Intellectual authority kept separate from control. When the era of capital arrived, the sources claim Marwari trading networks seized economic control, leveraging their acumen and networks for immense wealth and influence. This economic system, they assert, was further cemented by the Muslim Empire, reinforcing submission and centralized power.
So, a combined effect.
Exactly. The assertion is, together, these three forces, Brahmins via social hierarchy, Marwaris via economic dominance, and the Muslim Empire via political military control, created a structure where the rest of society lived only in submission. A centuries-long narrative of layered oppression.
Now, fast forward to today. A very different landscape. The sources acknowledge modern democracy and education have begun to significantly overturn this game.
Yes, a critical recognition. The transformative power of inclusive systems and knowledge.
The past 50 years, especially, have seen the notable rise of Dalit and backward communities, historically marginalized. Modern laws promoting equality have shaken the foundations of these traditional power structures. It suggests a hopeful shift, a democratic awakening.
Definitely a challenge to the old order.
However, and this is crucial, the sources contend that despite these significant changes, the underlying mindset of these three phases remains stubbornly unchanged.
The persistence of the mindset. That's the key thread.
Their core belief, they argue, remains. Power must remain in our hands at all costs.
So, while outward mechanisms might shift, the desire for dominance, for maintaining privilege, remains.
That's the argument. leading to a continuous, often unseen struggle against equitable power distribution.
And so, given this persistent mindset, the sources define the three distinct faces of Kali, representing that demonic order or system of malevolent influence as they manifest today.
Okay, what are the three faces today?
First, Brahmanism, which, they claim, seeks to maintain caste inequality under the guise of religion and tradition. Not true spiritual enlightenment, but manipulating principles to uphold hierarchies benefiting a few, perpetuating the grand lie of birth status.
Okay, Brahmanism as upholding caste.
Second, capitalism, specifically highlighting Marwari control, which, in their view, holds society hostage through money and trading networks. Not all capitalism, but an exploitative monopolistic form where economic power is used for control, keeping the majority in economic thrall.
So economic control is a form of hostage-taking.
That's the framing. And finally, the third face is militant Islamism, which, they assert, spreads terror, blind devotion, and violence in the name of religion. Leveraging extremism not for genuine devotion, but to sow chaos, enforce will through fear, demand unthinking adherence.
Wow. Those are three very distinct, very powerful critiques.
They are, and it's incredibly important to remember, as the sources themselves clearly state and reiterate multiple times, this analysis is emphatically not an attack on any specific community or religion as a whole.
They really stress that distinction.
They do. It's framed as a rigorous critique of these particular mindsets. The Brahmanical mindset upholding caste, the Marwari capitalist mindset controlling through finance, and the militant Islamist mindset seeking power through violence and blind faith. These are the ideologies and behaviors they see as actively perpetuating inequality. They are targeting ideas, systems, problematic behaviors, not individuals or groups by birth or faith, separating the person from the perceived problematic philosophy.
That distinction is crucial for understanding their argument properly. So what does this all truly mean when we bring all these fascinating and, frankly, provocative threads together? The sources are very clear about what this campaign is not against.
Right, reiterating it's not attacking Brahmins as people or any caste or religion.
That unwavering emphasis on distinguishing people from mindsets is key. They want the focus on ideas and systems.
Absolutely.
Instead, the campaign is explicitly about exposing the grand lie, that belief that birth equals sanctity, or that a mere label substitutes for genuine discipline and ethical conduct. This, they argue, is fundamentally a battle against mindsets, against ways of thinking that have historically blocked society from achieving genuine equality and justice. A call to dismantle biases and privileges that stifled progress.
The sources describe the real conflict as one that will inevitably emerge when a truly equality-based rule is established in society.
When equality becomes the norm.
Exactly. They predict that when such a system takes hold, the vast majority of communities will then unequivocally stand with justice and equality, a societal awakening where fairness becomes the natural order.
But there will be resistance.
Oh, yes. The resistance, they argue, will predictably come from the Brahminist, capitalist, and Islamist forces. These forces, in the source's view, will resort to conspiracy, violence, and cunning to protect their privileges.
That sounds quite intense.
It does. The narrative becomes stark, almost mythological. They're even called the three-headed serpents and the true enemies of the Kalki incarnation.
Three-headed serpents. Wow. That elevates it to a cosmic struggle.
It does. Between good, justice, equality, and evil. Privilege, oppression. This imagery emphasizes the deep-rooted, formidable nature of the opposition they foresee. A final battle of ideologies.
This brings us to that powerful, almost prophetic concept, the message of Kalki Avatar. Kalki, the prophesied avatar expected at the end of Kali Yuga. But what does Kalki mean here in this context?
They define it quite simply, yet profoundly. Kalki means the end of darkness.
The end of darkness, a metaphor for enlightenment, truth over illusion, the dawn of a more just era.
Precisely. The sources assert that when the Kalki avatar arises, implying a societal uprising, not necessarily a literal divine intervention, this trio of problematic mindsets will be unequivocally exposed.
Exposed, not necessarily destroyed.
More like their true oppressive nature revealed for all to see, stripped bare. And those who try to prevent society from attaining equality, justice, and fairness will be defeated. Defeat presented not as violence, but as the inevitable consequence of truth and justice prevailing. As awareness grows, these mindsets lose power, an ultimate triumph for positive change.
So what's the ultimate message then? They mention a manifesto, slogans.
Yes. Summarized in the People's Manifesto and the People's Slogans, it's a direct, urgent call for profound societal change. It urges you, the listener, and society to break the chains of caste.
Challenging the caste system directly.
Right. Also, break the web of capital, targeting the perceived economic stranglehold, pushing for economic liberation.
Okay.
And finally, end the violence hidden in the guise of religion, aiming to dismantle extremism and fanaticism using faith as justification.
Powerful calls to action.
The overarching belief presented is that equality and justice are the new religion, and justice is the true worship.
A radical redefinition of priorities. True piety is fostering social equity and fairness.
That's the assertion. True reverence lies in actively creating fairness for all, not in rigid adherence to corrupted traditions. They conclude with a definitive statement. Kalki has already come. The end of darkness is certain.
Kalki has already come, so the transformation is ongoing, not just awaited.
Exactly. It implies the seeds of this new era are sown, its triumph assured. A declaration of victory and a call to participate in this transformation.
Wow. We've really covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started by plunging into the specifics of who truly gets to be called a Brahmin, exploring those satirical, biting examples of chicken-wing Brahmins.
Exposing that profound hypocrisy.
Right. And from there, we broadened our scope to a sweeping critique of historical and modern power structures in Indian society, powerfully encapsulated by the three faces of Kali. Throughout this deep dive, we've seen how these sources relentlessly challenge the very idea of inherited privilege, pushing for a radical redefinition of identity based on genuine discipline and ethical conduct, not mere birth.
It's a truly profound shift in perspective they're calling for, isn't it? Indeed. This deep dive has shown us how the sources masterfully use sharp social commentary, even poignant satire, to highlight what they see as fundamental inconsistencies and deep-seated injustices. It vividly underscores a clear vision for a society built on equality and justice, actively challenging old narratives and entrenched mindsets that, they argue, have long suppressed progress.
Yeah, that call for a new religion of equality and justice is such a powerful framework, positioning these changes as a moral imperative.
Absolutely.
So what does all of this mean for you, our curious listener? Whether you're deeply familiar with these traditions or perhaps just learning about them for the first time, how do these incisive ideas about inherited status versus earned discipline, or about power dynamics masquerading as tradition, resonate in other areas of life or society that you observe in your own world?
That's a great question to ponder.
What truths are we, perhaps, still unconsciously allowing to be inverted in our own communities? Where appearances, labels, or inherited advantages might overshadow genuine conduct, earned merit, and true ethical living.
Yeah. Where else does this grand lie operate?
Something truly worth mulling over as you continue your own deep dive into being well-informed and discerning in a complex world.